WellHouse Church, what is up? I am back. For those of you who don't know, I had COVID and it was terrible. But I am back. I'm feeling great. I'm excited to be back sharing stories with you and ushering in the new year. I mean, my gosh, 2020 was absolute garbage. Can we just be honest? It was a terrible, terrible year. It was the worst. And to cap it all off, the end of the worst year, we got our first positive test in my household on Christmas Day. So to end the worst year of all time in the worst possible way, by being quarantined to the house for Christmas and New Year's. We didn't get to see anyone. We were stuck. It felt like in captivity. It really felt like we were on house arrest and we couldn't see anyone, and people would bring food and leave it on our doorstep, or they would come and knock and we'd have to crack and yell at them, "Hey, back up, we have the plague." Just a very, very, very terrible kind of experience to end 2020. And so I got to tell you, like, I have no shame saying that I was ready for 2020 to be over. Like, I could not be happier that 2020 is over. There is one good thing that came out of 2020. And that is that 2020 is the year that we planted WellHouse Church. But other than that, I'm ready for 2020 to be over. I'm excited for it to be over. And I'm looking forward to 2021 because I felt earlier in December, felt like God had given me a word as I was thinking about 2021 and pastoring and leading WellHouse and figuring out where we were going in direction and who we were. Felt like God gave me this message of new things. And see, just like as COVID felt in 2020, felt like bondage and captivity, and felt like we were being held back. There was once a time where the Hebrew people were in bondage and captivity and felt like they were being held back. And God delivers them from this captivity in the Exodus story. So at the end of Genesis, early Exodus, the Israelite people become enslaved to Egyptians. And in Exodus, that's where we get the story of Moses, and he leads his Hebrew people out of slavery in Egypt. He performs an exodus in moving them along. And they get to exit captivity. They get to exit oppression. They get to exit being held back into a new thing. God's going to give them a new land, and they're going to experience newness. Well, in the same way, I think WellHouse is at a place where 2021 is going to be an experience of new things. Isaiah, in his time, he's a prophet, and he's calling the people's attention to the Exodus. That don't forget, there was a time that you were in captivity. You were slaved. You were held back. But God brought you into flourishing. And he spends several verses and chapters recalling them, walking them through this journey of God's deliverance into prosperity. But then he says this. He says, "Don't revel only in the past or spend all your time recounting the victories of days gone by. Watch closely. I am preparing something new. It's happening now, even as I speak, and you're about to see it. I am preparing a way through the desert. Waters will flow where there had been none. It's my hope and prayer for us at WellHouse Church that 2020 is behind us and that 2021 is a way forward where God is doing something that's bigger than our past. 2020 was victorious for WellHouse Church in a lot of ways. We got sponsored from our denomination as a church plant. We got sponsored by our church sponsors. We grew. We saw people experience restoration. WellHouse had wins. But I believe that God is preparing a way for new things, new levels of restoration, new levels of relationship, new levels of providential experiences with the person of Jesus. That there's going to be waters and nutrients and blessing in places where there were none. That 2020 was just a drop in the bucket of what we're going to see. The new things that God is going to do through WellHouse in 2021. That He is preparing a way for some new things. The metaphor continues. Wild animals in the field will honor me. The wild dogs and surely birds will join in. There will be water enough for my chosen people, trickling springs and clear streams running through the desert. My people, the ones whom I chose and created for my own, will sing my praise. You see, even in captivity and oppression, Isaiah is calling these people to a very beautiful, poetic way of talking about blessings of God, this new thing that's about to happen. And they've experienced the goodness of God in some ways, just like we've experienced the goodness of God in some ways. But there's about to be something new happen. The animals are now going to honor God. The waters are going to go where there haven't been. Things are about to change. And for Isaiah, we're going to get the next few chapters. And he's going to tell us about a new experience of the grace of God. That the person of Jesus, the Messiah, the promised one, is going to come from God as the ultimate experience of grace, suffering on the cross for the people of God. And that through him, grace will abound. Grace upon grace. This new thing is grace upon grace. My prayer for WellHouse in 2021 is that we experience the grace of God in new ways. That God's grace abound, grace upon grace. That we truly understand restoration as we are broken people. And it's not our self-righteousness. It's not anything we do. It's only through the grace and love of Jesus that we get to experience this new thing. And for me, that new thing is fellowship with Jesus because of grace. That we can have fellowship with one another, experiencing the love of God through the people of God because we've experienced the grace of God through Jesus. And so, would you join me in praying that 2021 be the year that grace abounds for WellHouse Church, that God's doing a new thing. And that new thing is that everyone come to know the grace of Jesus through the experience of WellHouse Church.